Kenya is a country that is under construction literally. From byways and highways to mega dams, the country is developing at a very fast pace. According to the Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure, the total investment in roads alone is about 3.5 trillion Kenya shillings. That is for the last 10 to 12 years. And more is on the way coming. This week on Inside Government, we are talking to the Kenya National Highways Authority about some of the projects they are undertaking and when they are expected to come into the pipeline. Thank you so very much indeed for finding time to be with us. I mean, we are on top of one of the most prominent projects in this country, that is Nairobi Expressway. As Kenya National Highways Authority, this is definitely your baby project. What other projects are underway like this one?
Oh yeah, there are many projects that we have. Beside this, when you reach James Gichuru, there is one that is starting from James Gichuru to Likoni, to link it up to Likoni. Then we are picking it up from Likoni to Nakuru out to Mount Summit as a dual carriageway, meaning that people living to the west, it's going to be easy from Nairobi. On this other side, from the eastern side, we're also doing a road from the turnoff to Kitengela all the way to the junction of Machakos. And that certainly brings about ease of movement within this built-up area.
You know, one might imagine that it's only, the big cities where this kind of development projects, are being concentrated on. Do you have other areas where you would say there are mega roads projects that are under KeNHA that are coming up?
They're there. We, for example, let me start with coast. In coast, we have several projects because we have like the one which starts from Mombasa to Jomvu, which is about to be finished. I think recently or now you can see a lot of work coming up at Jangamwe. And then we are taking it all the way to Mariakani. That is one project. Then we have the road that is meant to actually bridge between the island and Southland. Whatever you call Mombasa MPAD, Mombasa Area Development Program. And the first section is done all the way from Miritini to the port. And then we are now linking that road to South Coast, so that then going to Tanzania through Runga is going to be easy. Just last week, we were with His Excellency the President, and we commissioned one road, the one that starts from Gariseni to Lamu. That serves as a good entry to Lamu. And again, at the same time, we also started another one, the Little Upset, which is starting now from Lamu through Ijara to Garissa. So that is the eastern side, and I'm not talking about the Kibwezi, Kitui, all the way to Mwingi, which is already ongoing and is at very high progress. Western, the same thing. So we are saying that we are opening up the country for business, for travel, for everything.
Mm-hmm. And this is definitely a significant investment, out of the project that you have just talked about. In business, there is something that we call returns on investment. What would you say is the ROI on all these projects that you undertake?
Well, most of them have different return of investment. But for example, where we are now, Nairobi Expressway, you know how much time we actually lose as we pass through Nairobi. And as you know, the main artery in Nairobi is actually this Great North Road, which actually connects the eastern side to the western side. So the moment you actually solve the problem as far as traffic is concerned, then you open up Nairobi, and the savings that are going to be realized by people who are in Nairobi and the way the economy is going to grow is quite a lot. Look at JKA. JKA is a hub, and without a support of this kind of an infrastructure, that investment, which is major and which can bring in a lot of money in the country, cannot be able to survive. So there's a lot that this project is going to bring about, because each one of us will save, because it doesn't matter whether you go up on the road or you'll be down there, because it means as people move up to utilize the expressway, then less vehicles are left down there, and therefore movement is going to be eased.
there will be less pressure, on Mombasa Road, which is just down here where you are. The construction of this highway has somehow disrupted the Mombasa Road as we used to know it. And one question that is coming up is, once this road is fully constructed and open to public, what will Mombasa Road look like?
Well, Mombasa Road will be more or less the same way you see it. However, we are also bringing in the one lane for bus rapid transit system. And that, of course, now brings about even much more efficiency, because many people will actually have to leave their vehicles at home and be able to travel through the road using the buses. So that is what you see. You see, immediately after this, there will be lanes of buses, one on either side of this expressway.
That is Dofu 1, is it?
Yeah, it's called Dofu. The line 1.
Yeah,
line 1 is called Dofu. And that certainly will also bring about efficiency in terms of the way people travel along this road. So that is what it will be. And beside that, we're also going to provide for walkways. We are also going to provide for cyclanes, street lighting. So it's going to be a very magnificent road even down there, because I know, and you have seen, that there is a lot of pouring of water that is happening now, and that actually undermines the pavement. So we're going to come and do a lot of rehabilitation to ensure that at least the road down there and up here more or less is going to be the same. Yes.
Is Mombasa Road going to be reconstructed?
Certainly it will, because like I'm mentioning, you realize a bit of it has been eaten by expressway. So as you now come to do the BRT, then you have to extend it a little bit. But basically not really reconstruction. It's basically, we can talk about rehabilitation in some areas.
How much do you plan to spend on the rehabilitation of Mombasa, the old Mombasa?
Okay, I think of it as BRT. We are talking about bringing in BRT, which will cost us in the range of 15 billion shillings. Together with the rehabilitation that we require. Beside that rehabilitation, if you look at some junctions, they are still not serving as well, like State Cabanas, like this junction of Enterprise Road. So we also need to improve all those. And again, even going back to Mororongo, there's some interchange that we require to put. So when all that is combined with the BRT and the movement of the road, to ensure that at least it has 3 lanes and 3 lanes on the other side, that's it.
Is this going to be from the Exchequer, or how will it be funded?
No, that will come from Exchequer. As you know, BRT, even on line 2, the Thika to Nairobi, is also being done by Exchequer, by our own resources. So even this one will be done by our own resources. But government, if they will have a window to borrow, they can still borrow and do the what,
so you're saying that
what is remaining.
From around October, November there, we expect to see the contractor being on site, working on the BRT line as well as the rehabilitation of Mombasa Road.
Correct. And the reason why we have synchronized it that way, we actually don't want to have people suffer twice. We want, as this one is getting shape, and most of the holding is being removed. You see, there's a lot of holding that is actually holding on this work. Then we bring in the other contractor, so that come the time we actually we are using the expressway, even the other side will be okay. So we are talking about completing almost at the same time, May to June next year.
When you look at Thika Road, I mean, some places it has even 8 lanes. The length of it is about how many kilometers? 45? All the way up to about 50 kilometers. Yeah, it was constructed at about 32.7 billion shillings. On the other hand, you have the expressway, which is 17.8 kilometers, at a cost of 67 billion shillings. Can you help people understand why the huge discrepancies in terms of cost for the two projects?
Yeah, I think 2 things. That was done from 2009 to 2012. That's almost over 10 years ago. There's a bit of inflation, that is one. The other bit of it is that when you look at this one, we are talking about almost 9 kilometers, which is elevated. Beside that, there are going to be toll plazas. There's going to be interchanges, several interchanges. We are talking about 10 interchanges. And that brings about the cost that we are talking about. So that basically it, that yes, that was done some time back when the shilling was a bit stronger than it is today, and the inflation is not as much, was not as much then. But then also the fact that we are doing an elevated road, almost half of it is elevated.
You know, the budget allocation from the road levy fund, you're talking about 22 billion shillings to KeNHA for the year 2020-2021. And the question that is coming now is, you know, with all the projects that are currently underway or ongoing, I mean, how are you managing to finance this project with this small kind of allocation from the exchequer?
I think, let me clarify. We have two sources, or three sources of resources. One of it being fuel levy, and that's what you mentioned as 22. Yeah. However, we also have development, which is being financed by government of Kenya, and we also have development partners, the various development partners. So much of what you see as new construction is actually coming from development partners as well as development fund. But now the 22 billion you talked about is mainly to maintain the existing infrastructure. For now, we are talking about having 21,200 kilometers of network, which is ADAS. And yeah, and we can actually tell you that there is no kilometer that is under KeNHA that you cannot pass through. Even where
out of the 21,000.
Yeah, even where we have not been able to tarmac, and they are talking about a gravel road or another road, you still can be able to pass it, because we have been able to provide drainage structures where people can cross. We have also been able to gravel where people can easily get stuck. So that is opening up a huge number of kilometers.
When you interrogate data from the Ministry of Infrastructure, they say that the desired investment in roads for the next 5 years will be about $1 trillion, Kenya shillings, so you're talking about 200 billion shillings every year. That is a daunting task for any government to raise this significant amount of money. How is this likely to impact on the project that you are in the pipeline, and what is the way out?
Yeah, for sure. I think those figures are right, that yes, even what is ongoing now among ourselves, KeNHA, KULA, and KELA, we are talking of something to do with like 500 billion shillings. And as it is, we can't stop at that point, because even if we finished now those projects, the requirement for more in terms of people wanting to access good accessibility is higher. So we still require more resources. What we are doing, I think, and especially in KeNHA, is that we're also looking at private resources, that people out there, they have resources which they can bring in transport sector, and which can actually bring about transformation. This is one example. Where we are actually standing is a good example, that we are talking about 60 billion shillings, where government of Kenya is not contributing anything as far as that construction is concerned. The only contribution is right of way, that is getting land and also getting the services to be moved so that the work can proceed. So you can see what it means. And then, as I mentioned, from Likoni all the way to Mount Summit, we are talking about 160 billion shillings dual carriageway, and it includes also the section to Maimahio up to Naivasha, another 58 kilometers. So in total it's 233 kilometers. Again, we have private sector coming in to support. So
through the PPP.
Through PPP. So in fact, if you now added even the two, you can see the kind of money we're talking about. So it's possible to get that trillion, as long as people now think outside the box, so that they can also be able to tap the resources that are with the private sector. Yes.
Well, you're watching Inside Government, and we are coming to you from Mombasa Road. This is actually the Nairobi Expressway, which is under construction. And according to government estimates, this infrastructure is supposed to be ready by around December this year. And the discussion we are having here is how to expand, the road infrastructure in this country. And we are talking to KeNHA National Highways Authority Director General, Engineer Peter Mundinia. According to the Ministry of Infrastructure, there are about 9,800 kilometers of road that is under construction at a cost of 685 billion shillings. How much of this is under KeNHA?
Out of that, I think we have 2,000 kilometers at a cost of about 200 billion. The rest is, most of it is with KeNHA, because they're doing low volume sea loads across the country.
Which are cheaper?
They're cheaper, but the kilometers are more in terms of what they are supposed to produce within this time.
It's proper to argue that you're operating in an environment whereby the resources are much more fewer than the project that you would want to implement or undertake. How does this impede on your faster rollout of key projects like the one that we are on top on?
Yeah, certainly, as you know, resources are never enough. What matters most is prioritization. You must prioritize what you need to do. And that's the reason why you find this project that we are talking about has been on our tables for the last 20 years. The very time we are doing Thika Road is the time that we wanted to do this. And you remember at some time we were working with World Bank. We were to do Nairobi Motorway. Whatever you're calling Nairobi Expressway used to be called Nairobi Motorway. But then resources, as I said, it takes time to really come, to be available so that such projects can be realized. So there are many projects out there in the countryside which are very important, and yet resources are not available. For example, closer here, when you think of the road to Kitengela all the way to Isinya, that's a road that more or less now requires. The road to Isinya all the way to Kajiado, that requires expansion. You are aware about the Magad Road, as you mentioned, the road that starts from Bomas of Kenya up to Gatarungai to Kiserian is highly congested. Think of the road, the Kiambu Road, from Muthaiga to Kiambu all the way to Duberi. That's another road that requires expansion. Eastern and Northern bypass, the ones that we did some 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is all packed up. So they also require some expansion. So there's a lot of projects that are within this area that you can be able to actually identify with, beside others also been given attention.
One might be forced to ask, when you have just mentioned a few roads that are very critical, and that would be considered to be critical arteries into the CBD, and one of them of course is the Bomas to Ongata Rongai Highway, Kiambu Road as well. I remember there was an announcement that were made in 2019 that a contractor was supposed to embark on the expansion of the Bomas, the dualling of Bomas of Kenya. Of course, up to now, nothing has happened, apart from, what you call routine maintenance of that highway. What do you look for when you are deciding this is a priority project?
Well, you talked very clearly, when we started, that you have to think of return of investment. That is basically it. And sometimes people think that returns can only be in form of cash or money. They are social returns. They are even political returns, for example, or even security. For example, there are some roads we are doing in far off this country in the north. And basically, not that there's a lot of traffic, but the moment you do them, you spur economic activities, you reduce on security problems and the money that is actually used for security reasons, and you actually bring about social integration. Some people who felt that they are not part of Kenya now, they will tell you they are Kenyans. Like for example, I'll give you an example. The Isiolo-Moyale road that we did. Those people, they used to say that they have reached Kenya when they reach Isiolo. Otherwise, they were not. They never felt they were in Kenya. Today, and I want you to go and that area and see the road. It's one of the best roads that we have constructed, and they feel they're in Kenya. They are integrated. They are part of the country.
The tourism sector in that.
Correct, and the business is booming. And as you know, that area, though arid, there's a lot of livestock that is actually available, which can actually bring in a lot of income.
When you face the people who, live in Rongai and they work in Nairobi and they have to wake up and be on the road at 5 in the morning, at 5:30 in the morning, so that they get to the city at about 8 in the morning, what do you tell them actually?
No, very difficult question. In fact, you said that there was a pronouncement in some time back. We are still pursuing because that project was meant to be done through annuity program, and it's still there. Annuity, just like PPP, because of the PPP process, it takes a little bit of time. So we still want to tell them that yes, we have not reached there, yes, but we are coming because we understand their problem, and it's really a major problem. So we are going to be available, and we are pushing to ensure that that project comes to can be able to start, and people can also be able to enjoy. Not really enjoy, but actually said you try, not losing a lot of time on the road, as you have said.
And there can also be new arguments. I mean, why would you start new projects? For example, the Mau Road that is under construction, instead of probably maybe dealing with the urgent issues like the expansion of Kiambu Road, the expansion of Ongata Rongai, among other areas where people have to suffer in the morning to go to work and actually in the evening.
I want to find out why you think Mau is not as deserving as Ongata Rongai. No, I think next time when you have time, I want to take you to Mau Road. Mau Road is a road which is actually going along the slopes of Aberdares. Those areas have highly agricultural activities that are there already. A lot of tea is available. All that tea was actually rotting, and that tea should be able to bring us income as a country. So as far as those Mau roads are concerned, the people did not know them because even leaching there was a problem. But now they can leach. Now they will know them because they can be able to reach. And like I said, that Mau we're talking about is also bringing about a lot of integration. That yes, you can be able to drive now along the Aberdares. You can be able to drive from Kiambu through Muranga to Nyeri. You can also drive on the other side of Aberdares to Nyandarua. And that will certainly bring about a lot of economic activities. And those areas, more or less, if you ask those people, they feel they have been marginalized. That is what they have been actually saying. When we were doing the stakeholders consultation, they didn't even believe that it will happen because they have never thought it can happen. But they felt they were fully marginalized. It was difficult for them to reach home and get out to where civilization is. So it is a very important road.
Under the new Kenya Roads Board Act, I mean, institutions like KeNHA, like KURA, KERA and so much, now they're empowered to float infrastructure bonds to raise resources, for the construction of roads. Are you thinking about pursuing that avenue as to now?
Well, I think it will be we shall pursue, but the most important point is how do you pay? Borrowing is okay, yes, you can say you can borrow, but then you must think about how do you pay. And that's the reason why now we are saying if you're talking about a road that you can toll, then you can be able to borrow, do the road, utilize the tolls that are going to be realized and pay. Like we are now talking about Nairobi Nakuru Mau Summit. Even though that is actually is an individual who has come in to do that, but even government as KeNHA, we can actually approach development partners and borrow money. And when we borrow that money, we get in an EPC contractor who will construct, and then we get resources. And most important now is that National Treasury has established what we are calling National Toll Fund, meaning that even if now we were to get resources and do a road, then that national toll fund is where that resources money is going to go. And if for any reason we have some little deficit, the National Treasury can be able to support. But it is important for people to think about borrowing and how you can be able to return the money.
In the interest of time, because we have to bring this to an end, what other projects would you say that are critical to the development of this country that are in the pipeline or that you plan to launch in the coming few months?
Well, let me first of all start with what we actually launched last week with His Excellency the President. That is Lamu, Ijara, Garissa. That is a section that goes through Boni Forest. Insecurity there is very high. Even doing the project is a challenge. However, it is going to bring about offtake of the port. Is going to support the port significantly to be able to evacuate the cargo from the port up to Garissa. But even as we reach Garissa, it's not adequate. We still need to take it a notch, another length higher to Isiolo, so that we can be able to tap the population that is in our north. That is Ethiopia. They have over 120 people. Of course, not all the area in Ethiopia may require the service of the port of Lamu, but the southern part of Ethiopia will find it very feasible to actually get their cargo in and out of Lamu. So that is a very, very significant project, if you ask me. And then we're also doing this one, which is now starting from Isiolo, going to Modogach, to Wajir, all the way to Mandera. Equally a very important road, because again, we are opening the north. And as I said, the resources that we have been able to realize when we did the Isiolo Moyale, we are going to replicate a similar kind of gains. Those areas are going to open up. We are going to tap resources now from there, and there are many. Yeah, so those are the ones that we are talking about, and it's actually what we are looking at is that we should be able to position our country very well in terms of doing integration, and that's why you find we have done almost all our roads that leads to the neighbors. And the ones that are not in good condition, we are improving them, like the one with the Tanzania, Bagamoyo, Rugarunga, Mombasa. We are doing that. And we want to do a very major bridge at Mombasa, what we call Mombasa Gate Bridge. That again will open up the entire coast in terms of the fact that people can be able to move very easily from Irad to South Coast.
Good. Anything else?
I think what is important is that we are happy with the way Kenyans have been able to support us, and especially on this project that we are doing here. We know it has been a big challenge, especially on traffic signal up, and people are spending a lot of time on this road. Personally, I do the same because my office is on the eastern side, and I have to use it almost daily, and I see what people are going through. We are only seeking for patience. By the time we reach December, most of this construction work will have been finished. Possibly by April, we'll be able to utilize this facility.
Well, Peter Mundinia, engineer, is the Director General of Kenya National Highways Authority, joining us here to help us understand, some of the projects that are already being undertaken and that are in the pipeline as well. As we all know, infrastructure is key to economic development. It helps in opening up communities and, of course, attracting what we call direct investment as well as forex investment. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Always a pleasure to see you. This has been Inside Government. Thank you for your time. We'll see you again on Thursday next week. Have a good night.